Hey, what's going on guys, it's Yoji. In this video I want to expand on something I touched on already a little bit on the last casual podcast episode, Breach League. Usually when a league ends, the question arises, should this mechanic be implemented into the main game? And if yes, how? Also, people wanted some more positive vibes from me, so here goes. Should the breach mechanic be implemented into the main game? I'd say yes. Why? The short answer is, I think breaches are super amazing and awesome, for several reasons. The main one for me is GGG finally managed to nail risk versus reward with breaches. Something they have struggled with a lot in the past. A lot of people felt Prophecy was not rewarding enough in some cases. Invasion definitely had a lot of risk, but no reward. Warbands definitely had some good rewards, but they were way too rare, and the list goes on. But with breaches, I think it's really good. A high amount of hilarious rip videos I have seen on the PoE subreddit this league have been from people who actually die to the league mechanic itself. They get tracked by Soul Eater Ash Breach rare mobs while standing on shocked ground. They get surprised by Chaos Breach with no chaos resistance, or Tool comes along and greets them with 500 frost bolts to the face. Another good way to die is being greedy and rolling Beyond on your maps, so breaches can spawn loads of Beyonders for extra experience and loot. Until Bameth shows up and Valdides, the whole breach, under your ass. So breaches can be quite dangerous and definitely a big challenge to every non-meta build or non-top tier build out there. And even the best builds can be caught off guard by this. At the same time, breach monsters drop a ton of loot and currency. Rares even drop maps, and of course, simply by their sheer numbers, they also give a ton of experience. Oh, and there are also breach rings, which are okay, I guess. I don't know about you, but I feel the breach rings are not adding all that much to the breach experience. They're kind of nice to have, but definitely not the center of attention. But the Breach Lords and collecting splinters definitely is a highlight of the league for me. Compared to previous league's boss content, like the Pale Council or Rigwald, I think the Breach Lords are a lot more exciting to fight. Their loot also ranges from nice to have up to god tier uniques for certain builds and archetypes. And of course the blessings are a nice mechanic to have there as well. I also like that there's a risk of bricking the Breach Lord runs by running out of time and not clearing fast enough, on top of running out of portals of course. It creates a pressure for a build to have enough AoE clear, but also single target damage and sustain to deal with the content. On top of it all, I also enjoy the presentation. I know some people hate it, but I love the breach sound filter that makes the whole fight within the breach feel so otherworldly and different. Because behind that curtain, the league is still just click a thing to spawn a lot of mobs. So how would I go about implementing Breach into the main game? If added to the core game, Breach would have to be common enough to make it at least somewhat realistic to collect enough splinters, so you can actually get the Breach Lords. But if it becomes too common, it can become pretty oppressive. So I think the two most obvious ways to implement Breach would of course be A, have breaches spawn randomly in the wild as they are now, and B, as a Zana mod. The main problem I see with the Zana mod is that it would instantly become the best mod to put on any map, due to how rewarding Breach is. Unless the price is super high, but then nobody would really use it. I think it would be really hard to find a good balancing spot where the cost is high enough but not too high, so people want to use it but it actually hurts your currency pool. Maybe it would be an adequate replacement for the Zana level 8 mod, for the times they decide to rotate Nemesis out, so it at least takes you a while to get to that Zana 8 and get the breach mod going. Spawning breaches in the wild of course works, but it is very uncreative. I feel the spawn rate would have to be lower than it is right now of course, to leave room for other mechanics like the next league's mechanics to actually feel present enough, because breach is a mechanic that does need a lot of room and takes the center of attention very easily, because of how overwhelming the mob spawning is. My suggestion however would be to encompass breach into the other mechanics we already have in the game, because it has the potential to make people go out of their way to encounter breaches, at least to a certain extent, because it is so rewarding that finding a breach when they are a bit rarer has the potential of becoming a really exciting moment, like finding a good item. A prophecy, or maybe even a prophecy chain, could solve the scarcity of splinters problem. People who want to fight breach lords could buy those prophecies to guarantee some extra breach encounters. This could range from a simple you will encounter a map with X breaches prophecy, or you will encounter a breach lord in the next breach you open and he will drop twice the amount of splinters, to a chain that has you encounter modified breaches and actually ends with you getting a breach stone, for example. An idea I like as well is adding the Nemesis mod, Breach Spawn. that has the monster open a breach on death. That would make Nemesis a bit more valuable, of course, and can actually catch people off guard if they are clearing very fast. Alternatively, this would of course also work with Bloodlines, but I feel Bloodlines on a map is already desirable by itself, so I'd rather add this to Nemesis. Another option would be a breach-related ghost. That makes the rare it possesses open a breach on death, or maybe just drop splinters and breach items, or spawn breach monsters around the mob. Maybe adding a breach-related chest to the Überlab could be a thing. We have a Vial and a map-related one already, so why not? A strongbox mod for opens a breach could be a thing, but that would be hard to balance. It has the potential of creating a very stale box rolling meta. The same is true for adding it as a map mod. You don't want to feel forced to roll every map to have additional breaches. Maybe instead of opening a whole breach, the box could just be guarded by an additional breach pack, or contain some extra splinters or whatever, kind of like they did with the silver coins. But I feel that a full breach might be a bit too much. Maybe they could add the wild breach lords to the table of invasion bosses, just for shits and giggles, because there are a few ways to encounter invasion bosses still in the game, for example from prophecies or sextons, and just finding a random breach lord here and there could be fun. And of course, sextons could be an option to consider as well. While sextons are already very rewarding to use at the moment, I think they are a fantastic mechanic that adds a lot of variety to mapping, and therefore putting breaches on there as well would just add to the fun of creating those crazy map mod combinations, because breach is really good at creating havoc. Well, that's it for my ideas. I just hope they will be a little bit more creative with Breach than they have been with the previous leagues like Essence, because I think it really has been a fantastic league so far, which deserves to be added to the core game in a cool and creative way. What are your guys' ideas for adding Breach to the main game? Or should it be added at all? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe for more Path of Exile content. I am Yoji, and I will see you soon.